Hey guys, it's Fred. Just gonna make a short video here. I've been seeing all kinds of comments by Mr. Elam concerning credentials that I had asked for about what police department or sheriff's department, what law enforcement experience he had, because in several of these videos I had noticed that, and I had commented on it a long time ago, says he's a sheriff, retired sheriff, a deputy sheriff, and a person never knows. You'll hear these other YouTubers, and they'll be interviewing them, and they'll introduce them as a retired sheriff or retired law enforcement, this and that. He never one time corrects them, never once. And I saw a thing earlier where he commented to somebody, and he said somebody was talking about old Fred being rough on him or something. Guys, I don't mean to be rough on nobody. I'm not, again, never was a Buford Pusser fan or something like that. I watched a movie in the 70s and about the extent of it. Knew who he was, and I always understood him to be just a tough character. He was a lawman, but I never heard anything, never heard him. Doesn't matter what I heard, I've never seen any proof that he ever took a bribe or done anything at all other than be a strict lawman. Besides that, what got me is when this news conference come out, and they held a news conference and said Buford Pusser had murdered his wife 58 years ago. Buford Pusser's been in the ground for 51 years. And they come out and say that he's murdered his wife in today's world. Guys, there's illegal aliens here that have more due process than Buford Pusser had. And that's sad. I would love for you all out there, if you got any lawyer friends, judge friends, prosecutor or defense attorney friends, ask them. Ask them their thoughts on this. Am I wrong in questioning what I'm doing on no evidence? The car has since been melted down and taken to a junkyard. There's no evidence that you could get from real evidence. The gun's never been produced that's done any of the shooting. Now they're going to tell you, I'm going to show you something here in a minute where Mr. Davison and Mike Elam, of course, Elam says that, you know, they recovered this gun, and I actually think the TBI's sorry for not charging him and the guy that had the stolen firearm. Had a military stolen M1 rifle for all these years. And then Mike Elam's known about it for a long time, and he never reported it until he seen that he could use it in his narrative to move his book forward or bus tours or movie business. That's not the way it works, guys. When you know a crime's being committed or somebody's got something, just not the way it works. Now, let me stay on track here. Mr. Elam told this guy, he said, well, he's not much of an investigator. I've got it all over my Facebook. All you had to do was look at my Facebook, and he could have seen. I got my law enforcement credentials up there. Well, guys, here's his Facebook you're looking at. That's his Facebook that you're looking at. Now tell me where you see anything about law enforcement. That's what I see when I click on Mike Elam's Facebook page. Now, I went even a step further, and I said, well, let me see if he's got anything else. So I found the Buford Pusser, the other story or whatever it is. Here's another page of his, evidently. Public figure. I'm not sure if this is even his. It's got his stuff all over, his books. But there's nowhere on here. I clicked on about. I clicked on everything that I could click without requesting to be a friend or something. It's not there. Now, I did find where somebody had sent me this, and back in the day when I was with the Benton County Sheriff's Office. Now, That's Mike Elam there, and he says back in the day when I was with the Benton County Sheriff's Office. I don't know if you guys have went. Some people don't even watch the videos. They just comment, and I understand that. Everybody, there's 2 sides, 3 sides, 4 sides anymore in America. Nobody's on the same side, it don't seem like. But if you went to the video, you might better understand why I question things like I do. Sheila and I called the Benton County Sheriff's Department in Arkansas, and it's on tape there. We talked to them, and the clerk at the sheriff's office said she'd never heard of Mike Elam. You'd think if it's a retired sheriff or deputy sheriff or whatever, they would know. I know you can ask anywhere I've ever worked, and they'll tell you about me. They know I worked there. It may not all be good because I've arrested a few and wrote a few tickets in my day and so forth, and you just never know what you're going to hear as a police officer, how people feel about you. They didn't know him. They was not familiar with that name, and the clerk put me over to dispatch, and dispatch wasn't familiar with him. And my question there was, I called the newspaper editor and talked to him. He didn't know Mike, except that he knew that after I gave him his name, he looked it up and he said, well, he's wrote a book. And I said, yeah, I know that. So that's my reason. If you've been in law enforcement, you would think that the sheriff's department that you put out there would know you. Now, there may be a reason for that. Who knows? But let's go on to the next one here. Here's what Mike says, or at least here's what it says on Lincoln page. And it says that he's retired, self-employed, and deputy sheriff, Benton County Sheriff's Office, Bella Vista. That's what it shows on his Facebook page, is Bella Vista. But it don't show nothing about Benton County Sheriff's Office or how long he worked or anything else. Down there it's loss prevention. I know he's a loss prevention kind of guy. It says here that he worked in law enforcement from 1989 to 92. To 92. 89, 90, 90. About 3 years, if that's correct. If that's correct. Now, that's what it shows there, 89 to 92. Now, somebody sent me a story, and it's by an online newspaper or something, and it's titled that the sheriff, he was the sheriff for 6 years. Elam was Benton County, Arkansas sheriff for 6 years in the 1970s. This is part of the story here. I need to go back and get that other. I'll post it in the link here in a minute. But it says here in the story, it says on the headline, I'm thinking it says on the headline that he retired as the Benton County Sheriff. I'll have to go back and check that, but thought I had that here, but I don't. But here it says he served for 6 years in the Sheriff's Department. Now, he made this story. He gave the interview to these people. Where do you think they got that from? Where do you think they got retired or the 6 years in the 70s? Worked for Sheriff's Department 6 years in the 70s, 1970s. Now, on his other page there, it says that he worked from 89 to 92. You guys think I'm wrong for having a question about his employment or when he was in law enforcement, or if he was in law enforcement? If he was he a special deputy? Was he certified? Did he go to school? Did he graduate from a police academy, or did the sheriff just know him as a friend and say, here, I'm going to deputize you? There's a big difference in that. But going on, it says there that he was a Benton County, Arkansas sheriff for 6 years in the 70s. Now, it's not what it's showing. It's not what it's showing. It's showing this in one place in the 70s, showing over there for 3 years, 89 through 92. So if you guys think that's peculiar that I question that, then I'm sorry, it's just going to have to be peculiar because that's part of an investigation. You want to know who you're talking to. You know, the first thing that catches my eye is, what does he always say there? The truth is something. Guys, when people have to tell you to tell the truth, when people has to put that out there, you better be leery of that person, in my experience. Now, Mr. Davison, I'm going over some stuff earlier, and guys, we got a video coming out probably tomorrow on Hatfield McCoy Museum Adventures. Be a long, long video. It's going to be where I go over the press conference with Mr. Davison and the TBI representatives. And I'm going to review it, and I'm going to point some things out to you. How they elude certain questions, sometimes it's what they don't say that gives things away that something's not right. So tomorrow, it's a long video. Some of you may not want to fool with it. And if you're already set in your mind, guys, if it's already set and you just know in your heart that Buford Pusser killed his wife and there's no change in your mind, why get your blood pressure up and watch our videos? I wouldn't even waste my time watching them. If you're that dead set on it and nothing's going to change your mind, then there's no need in even watching. I wouldn't waste my time watching my videos. For those of you that's on the line or you know better, you may want to watch it because it may show you some stuff that you didn't know. But, you know, here's something that's when TBI agents received a tip about a murder weapon. The weapon is believed to have been a .30 caliber carbine rifle. But Davison said, physical evidence shows it was likely used by Buford to shoot Pauline outside the vehicle. The gun was recovered and tested. Though they cannot conclusively say it was a murder weapon, Davison said, it was consistent with the weapon that killed Pauline. Guys, I don't know where this prosecutor, I don't know what's going on with our criminal justice system. Maybe I've missed something. I've been out of it for 8 years. I've been retired 8 years. But it says there the weapon is believed to have been a .30 caliber rifle. That weapon is believed to have been a .30 caliber rifle. That's the murder weapon he's talking about. That's because they found .30 caliber casings on the highway out there. They found .30 caliber casings. So that's a good clue that probably Buford and Pauline was shot with a .30 caliber gun. Davison said physical evidence shows it was likely used by Buford to shoot Pauline outside the vehicle. That's going to be interesting, guys. You know, that's going to be interesting. So they're telling us that Buford's DNA, his blood, his sweat, tears, hair fiber, saliva. Davison said physical evidence shows it was likely used by Buford. Likely. See, that word likely throws you off when a prosecutor uses that. Likely. Are you going to go to trial and try to prove a case on likely? Now, he goes on down through there, and he says the gun was recovered and tested, though they cannot say conclusively it was the murder weapon. Guys, if you can't say conclusively, that means it's not. That's a play on words. That cannot say conclusively. Can you say, what do you mean? Up here at top it says that more than likely the evidence shows that it was a weapon used by Buford. More than likely. Physical evidence shows. So there should be physical evidence on that rifle that comes back to Buford, and there should be at least one .30 caliber bullet inside Pauline's head. Well, there wasn't. There was fragments of a bullet or bullets, but they didn't say what caliber. They just said fragments. Could that be fragments from a shotgun? Could that be fragments from a .22? Could that be a 38, 9mm, because in that vehicle, there's different size holes. If you look at the bullet holes, there's different size bullet holes in that car. So they had at least 2 different types. I'm not a ballistics expert. And besides, we don't have the car to look at. You can only see pictures. You can't go by pictures. You got to have something to stick a measuring device in to measure that hole and caliber. The gun was recovered and tested, though they cannot say conclusively it was the murder weapon. If they can't say conclusively, how can they say that Buford Pusser murdered his wife? Davidson said it was consistent with the weapon that killed Pauline. Oh, okay, guys, hold on a minute now. Davidson said that it was consistent with the weapon that killed Pauline. Oh, so it was a 30 caliber M1 rifle that killed Pauline. That's what they're saying. Oh, okay, see, I get that. It's consistent. Well, that means that it's consistent with 6.2 million other M1 rifles, 30 caliber. There was 6.2 million M1 30 caliber rifles made in the 40s and early 50s. Go figure. This is what their case is on, guys. This is how you present something. This is how a well-spoken person, like a prosecutor, like an attorney, this is how they can speak, and they can make you guys think that what they're saying is just pure, solid truth. Why would anybody want to convict somebody or persecute somebody's reputation on nothing more than likely, on nothing more than could be, on nothing more than maybe, or our opinion, or we believe? Why would anybody do that to anybody's reputation? Though they cannot say conclusively it was the murder weapon, Davidson said it was consistent with the weapon that killed Pauline. Well, this appears to be domestic violence rather than this notion that they were ambushed in the middle of the night. See, you know, I heard that a while ago, and you'll hear that in the video tomorrow, because this is funny that I hadn't seen that. I missed this middle of the night here, because when the director of the TBI was finishing up on his interview on the press conference, he said when they went out there that night, they didn't go out there till 4:30 in the morning. Not that night. Now here Mr. Davidson says they was ambushed in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere. Well, if you was going to ambush somebody, that would be the place to do it, is in the middle of nowhere. And there was no street lights, he says. Well, that's a good place to ambush somebody. But let's go back to middle of the night. Now, their number one thing on their news press conference was they had 5 things: autopsy, Buford Pusser's inconsistencies in his statement. What would you guys call this right here? If you guys was questioning Mr. Davidson here, and when you hear the video tomorrow, you'll hear Mr. Roush say the same thing. He says when they left that night, in the middle of the night, or whatever he says, at night. And you'll see where I comment on the video. What if Mr. Davidson here was suspected of a crime, and you was questioning him right now? That's inconsistent. That is an inconsistent statement with the truth, with what everybody else has always said, because everybody said that it was beginning to become daylight the next morning. It was 4:30 in the morning when he got the complaint, and he's headed out on the complaint, so it's starting to get daylight, 5 o'clock. Somebody said 4:30 to 4:45, and they said, well, Buford's inconsistent because Buford said 5 o'clock. Okay, well, let's give him the same 15 minutes they gave the other guy, 4:30 to 4:45. Let's give Buford 4:45 to 5 o'clock. Still got a 15-minute range, but because Buford was at 5 o'clock instead of 4:45, they said, oh, that's inconsistent. He can't be telling the truth. Mr. Davidson here says The ambush occurred in the middle of the night. Mr. Roush says on the video, occurred in the middle of the night, or at night. That's inconsistencies, guys. Do we think these guys are lying? Are we supposed to take them as telling lies because they said middle of the night? Or is that just something the way they worded it? Did they not mean nothing by it? I'm sure they didn't. But you see what I'm saying? And imagine being through what Buford Pusser went through. PTSD, shock. Can you imagine watching your wife's head be blown off? I'm not going to drag it out, guys. It's been long enough. Thanks for joining me. Listen, you'll probably want to go over to Hatfield McCoy Museum Adventures tomorrow. Maybe a boring video to most of you, unless you're really in this case and you really want to see some discrepancies in their case. You'll probably want to skip it. But if you want to see some discrepancies and how they avoid questions at the end of this interview, I'll tell you what, jurors and newspaper reporters, or reporters, period, are some of the smartest people that I've ever known, because I used to work the courts also, and I've seen juries and heard juries and how inquisitive and how smart and some of the good questions they ask. And then I hear that those people, those reporters out in that audience asking Mr. Roush and Mr. Davison questions, and you know what they say? They say, well, you'll have to go see the report when it comes out. Now, they're the ones that investigated it. They're the ones that stood up there and said Buford Pusser murdered his wife. They've got other detectives up there on the stage with them. One of them even comes up and talks, and he says the same thing. It'd be best if you see the report. Really? You guys worked the case, you know the case, you investigated the case, but when they ask a question, you tell them to go see the report rather than just answering the question after you've accused somebody of being a murderer that's dead, that has no due process, that's never going to get his day in court, never going to get... Thanks, guys.